This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, and especially at the moment, I do hope you're well. Now, I've been doing a series of videos lately where we've looked at alternatives to the obvious choice when you're shopping for this type of guitar or that type of guitar. We started off with the Les Paul, then we did the Telecaster, then we did alternatives to Fender Stratocaster. Last week, we did alternatives to the Les Paul Junior. And this week, it is the turn of the Gibson ES335. Maybe you fancy this style of guitar, this kind of semi-hollow, thin-line guitar, but maybe you don't have a spare £2,000 nestling away in the back of your wallet somewhere. And if that's the case, well, there is an obvious choice, the Epiphone Dot. But here's the thing with Epiphone, okay? I've got a mate who's massively into his cars, and every time he sees a Porsche Boxster drive past, he always goes, "There's a bloke who wanted a 911 but couldn't afford it." And there is kind of possibly that vibe about Epiphone guitars. I mean, personally, I don't really care what anybody thinks of the guitars I play, but maybe, you know, there are some people out there who do. So if you're looking for an alternative to a 335, and you don't want what you might perceive as the poor man's Gibson, then here are a bunch of alternatives for roughly the same kind of money. Okay, kicking off the lineup, we have the Ibanez ES73, and there she is. Rather pretty looking beast. So what do we get for 363 coins of the realm? Well, it's a semi-acoustic design, obviously, with a maple body, and I'm assuming that means the entirety of the body is maple. Obviously, the hollow body itself is going to be maple, but the centre block that the pickups and bridge and tailpiece are mounted into, there are various different types of timber used for that part of the build on this style of guitar commonly, and I'm assuming that we've got maple in its entirety here. Mahogany neck, set neck, laurel fretboard, standard Gibson scale length, and two classic elite humbuckers, which tells us nothing about the tone of the guitar really, or the output of the pickups or anything. One piece of advice I would say with all of these thin line semis is very definitely try before you buy, if you can. You might think, well, yeah, if I don't like the pickups, I can swap them out. It is a massive, massive faff around to swap out pickups on this particular design of guitar. Everything has to be done through the F-holes and through the pickup cavities. It's, it's much more of a big job than it would be swapping the pickups on a Les Paul or a Strat or something like that. So just bear that in mind. But, there we go. It's an attractive looking guitar. And one thing I will just point out here is you will see this kind of shading on the kind of headstock and the top of the neck quite often as a way of disguising a neck break where the neck has been repaired. So if you see one of these on the used market and you're kind of looking at that and you're thinking, oh, has this guitar had a nasty accident at some point or other and they've covered it over like that? Well, quite obviously they come from the factory like this, so don't worry about it. Anyway, let's have a look at the next one. We have got the Gretsch G20 PM Streamliner. Now, I've had the full-on hollow body version of this guitar in for review, and it was a beautifully put together guitar. Let's have a look at some close-up pics. There we go. Yeah, I mean, what do you get? Well, you tortoiseshell pickguard. I'm always a sucker for that. You can see we have this rather cool vintage retro funky V-shaped tailpiece there, and you get the Broadtron humbuckers there. They look like Filtertrons, but they are actually full-on sized humbuckers, and they are more akin to just kind of regular humbuckers in sound. You get a laminated maple body, which also has a NATO neck, and again a laurel fingerboard. what 12-inch fretboard radius and 22 frets. There you go, Broadtron humbuckers. Yeah, these guitars are nice guitars, these Gretsch Streamliners. I've had one in here, as I say, for review, and I've played a couple that belong to students of mine, and they are very, very nicely put together guitars. The only note of caution I would sound on this one is your top fret access isn't going to be great here. Now, I know you're not going to be buying this guitar to whittle and shred away up at the dusty end of the neck, but it's... Personally, myself, I like to know that those frets are there. I like to kind of think, well, they're there if I want them, and that would, I don't know, that would feel a little bit limiting, but perhaps that's just me. Nice looking guitar, full of vintage retro cool, and, you know, you'll get as broad a range of sounds out of this as I would suspect you'd get out of any Thinline semi, and it just looks a little bit different. Next we come on to something of a Marmite guitar. Marmite, in case you don't know, if you're not from these shores, is a rather delicious spread, which that's either your opinion of it, it's delicious, or it's, my brother-in-law calls it the devil's toe jam. It's a thing you either love or hate, and that's what's going on with this guitar here. The Fender Squier Classic Vibe Starcaster. This harks back to the 60s when Fender were trying to win over some Gibson dissidents, I suspect, you know, and they produced the Thinline Semi. So what have we got? We've got laminated maple body. Again, I'm assuming that's going to be a maple centre block as well. We get a bolt-on maple neck here. This is the only bolt-on guitar in the lineup, and 22 narrow tall frets. You get standard Fender scale length, so if you're fancying this style of guitar but you feel maybe a little bit cramped on the shorter Gibson scale length, then this might be something that you might want to consider. You get two Fender wide range humbuckers, and, you know, everything else is as you would expect, really. You know, all of the controls and appointments are pretty much what you would expect them to be. For me, the deal breaker on this guitar would be that headstock shape. Yeah, it's a love it or hate it thing, and the only way that could be possibly any uglier in my eyes is if you look at it from the back. Dearie me. Yeah, not for me, I'm afraid, but maybe it is for you. And 385 quid will get you one of these, and it's a Squier Classic Vibe, and we know that they have a pretty good reputation for, you know, churning out good quality, reliable guitars. Next up, we come to the Hofner Very Thin Deluxe, and this guitar has some nostalgia value for me because back in the 70s there used to be a TV show. I'm sure many people will remember the Wheel Tappers and Shunters Social Club, Saturday night TV variety kind of show. And I remember Bert Whedon appearing on that, playing a guitar which looked a lot like this in my memory. Maybe it's my memory's playing tricks on me, but it's a beautiful looking guitar. I quite like the fact there that you've got, it's obviously at this price only a veneer, but you've got the buck match maple on the back there as well. You know, just looks nice. So what do we get with this guitar? Well, again, semi-hollow body, reduced very thin body. This is a slightly smaller body shape, which is why I included this in the lineup here. Maybe you've tried, you know, a 335 or an Epiphone Dot or something like that, and it just felt a bit big and ungainly. This is just a little bit more petite. Maple body, centre block made of spruce, set maple neck. Again, no real information on the humbuckers. It just says two Hofner full-size humbuckers. Again, try before you buy. But, you know, looking at this style of guitar, you know, they're not going to be putting, you know, Screaming Demon or Super Distortion style pickups in something like this. I think you can pretty well guarantee that you're going to be getting something with a vintage, you know, kind of less hot output on pickups like this. It's an attractive looking guitar, and as I say, it brings back some rather fond childhood memories for me. And finally, we have the Guild Starfire, and let's take a look at this. Now, one thing that you'll see in the specs when we look at them is that it states that this guitar has 20 frets, but count them, there are 22. That's obviously 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 frets. So there's obviously a typo there in the spec sheet. 22 frets, and it's a body shape that's kind of familiar, but just different enough to not be a copy. Obviously, Guild have been around since the year dot, and they've been making guitars. I seem to remember some footage on TV years ago of Buddy Guy in his younger days playing an absolutely blistering blues guitar solo on a guitar that looked very, very much like this. I remember that sort of stair-step pickguard design. What else are we getting? We're getting Thinline hollow body design with a mahogany centre block, laminated mahogany body, mahogany neck, rosewood fretboard. There you go. You see it says 20 frets. There aren't. There's 22. Again, not much information on the pickups, just 2 Guild HB2 humbucker pickups. You do get single coil switching on this guitar, which, as far as I'm aware, that's the only guitar in the lineup that does do that. And yeah, lovely looking guitar, and you just know that a guitar like this is going to be absolutely the mutt's nuts when it comes to playing blues and anything a bit rootsy and kind of old school like that. And that concludes the lineup today. So there you have it. Those would be, the kind of choices I would come up with if I was looking for something that cost roughly the same as an Epiphone dot, maybe a little bit less towards a little bit more, within, say, £100 price range, 50 quid either side of the Epiphone dot or thereabouts. Those are the choices, or some of the choices that are available, and I just picked the ones that are the most, to me, interesting choices. Which one would I have? Well, to be honest with you, none of the above. If I was after that style of guitar, I would just go and buy a Harley Benton HB35. I've had one before, and the only reason I sold it, along with a couple of other guitars, was because our dog was ill, and we had a big vet's bill to pay, so I had to shovel off some guitars pretty quick to cover that. But if I was going to get a Thinline semi, I'd just get myself another Harley Benton HB35 and be done with it. As I say, I don't really care what people think of the badge on the guitars that I play. And that is pretty much all I've got for you today, folks. Hope you found it interesting, useful, informative, and if you have, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not give me a like while you're at it? If you want to support the channel, check out all the links in the description, and Patreon, you can buy a Fret Zealot. Thank you in advance if you're going to do any of that. It's much appreciated. It helps me keep the lights on around here. And with that, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Don't forget the live stream on Friday, every Friday now. I know the pubs are open again, but I've kind of settled into a bit of a routine doing it. I'm enjoying myself. So 5 PM UK time on a Friday, we have a live stream, just basically having a beer and a chat and a laugh. It's great fun. Great way to kick off the weekend. Hope to see some of you there. So with that, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you for watching, thank you for your time, stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Look after yourselves. Bye for now.